so many strange things about it. One of the rockets into the moon, the phrases rang like a bell for over an hour. And then you've had people who have seen pictures, like I've talked about Carl Wolf. What am I looking at? He's like, this is the backside of the moon. There's like cities there and stuff. And he said he was poisoned.
And that's what happened with Nikola Tesla too, right? They seized all his stuff. 80 boxes of research. I want to talk about the hollow moon.
Okay.
Is the moon hollow?
Man.
I've not dug into that. I had a side
weird.
conversation with Randall Carlson once, and he's the one that brought it up. I have not seen this episode of yours.
It's a fun one. That was Gino, my brother, said, you got to do this one. And it's like, hollow moon, that nonsense. And then I'm researching the episode, and I just start to realize that there's a lot of weird stuff about the moon. And by the time I was done with the episode, I was convinced that it was hollow. But there's a lot of weird things that have happened with the moon. Like, first of all, the moon is too big to be here. It's just too big. We've never found another system in our solar system or any other that has a giant moon right next to us like this. This is totally unique. We haven't found a moon that has such a perfect orbit like this, that also the same side faces us all. We're a snowflake with this, totally unique. So that's strange.
Oh shit, I didn't realize.
No, we haven't found
it. The only moon that we know of that doesn't rotate.
No, there are a few moons that are tidally locked like.
Okay.
But it's rare. But when you stack up all these coincidences, it starts to paint a picture like the moon is weird. A lot of people will point to the moon during the eclipse is like perfect size to block out the sun because it's like a 400-to-1 ratio. That's fair, but the moon at one point was a lot closer to the Earth, and it's drifting away. So at some point, it's not going to be perfect anymore. But the moon, the far side the crust is different, older, and much thicker, and fewer impacts are on the far side that are on the near side. When you think it would be the opposite, because that's kind of like should be grabbing things as they come in, but instead there's not many impacts on that side. When during one of the Apollo missions, as a test, a seismic test, they crashed one of the rockets into the moon just to take readings, seismograph readings, to see what was going on there. And the phrases, the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. So if you set off like seismic charge here to measure sound waves that go through the Earth, as they go through the Earth, they slow down as they go through all this dense matter and then through the mantle and the core. Like it just slows down. Moon, they don't do that. The sound waves sped up and started to bounce all around in there and started to like reverberate for a long time. And no one could really explain that. Now, the prevailing theory, the mainstream theory, is that the moon is a lot less dense than the Earth because it was created from Earth's crust and the upper mantle, which is less dense, which is why the moon is less. So the interior has maybe some hollow spaces, or it's just it's not quite as dense. That's why. Okay, but the sound waves bounced around for a long time. There was a long time. This is true.
What hit it again?
They dropped one of the rocketers. They just crashed it in there. But they did seismograph readings in subsequent missions there, where they actually been like explosives, controlled explosives, and they just take the readings. It happens to the sound waves. It's a normal scientific thing to do. I think they were just surprised. There's been a couple of scientists who've even said it would make a lot more sense that the moon wasn't here than the fact that it is, because there's so many strange things about it. And we see light on the moon all the time. They're called transient lunar phenomena, where you just see these light flashes on the moon all the time. And if you have binoculars, you can even see this. In one of the moon craters, I think it's the Aristarchus crater, there's this blue glowing light that just appears from time to time and then goes away, and then it appears again. They call it the blue, and you can see it. So what's causing it up there? Well, mainstream scientists will say, well, you're seeing flashes because the moon it's a lot like glass. It's very glassy and reflective, so you're that. But we'll see light just like go across. You'll just see light zip across. And then what's the blue light in that same crater that we've been seeing since 17th century? It's Aristarchus or Aristarchus crater, I think is how you say it. Blue light. What is that? And now they're seeing, just very recently, like this year, these swirls of light and gas is happening on the moon. But they don't understand it. There was one point where the moon doesn't really have an atmosphere. It has a tiny one. Doesn't really have one. But for a little while, there was just all this water vapor in the air on the moon that came from there and then just disappeared. So I don't know what that is.
Time is a funny thing. It's so limited, and yet we let it pass by us. We're all guilty of putting important things off until later. If you've been putting off life insurance, check out Fabric by Gerber Life. They make it fast and easy so you can check it off your list right now. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Busy parents like you, all online and on your couch. You could be in under 10 minutes with no health required. Fabric is partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families just like yours for over 50 years. There's no risk, there's a 30-day back guarantee, and they have over 1,900 five-star reviews on Trustpilot with a rating of excellent. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/srclips. That's meetfabric.com/srclips. MEET fabric.com/srclips. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
Then you've had people who have seen pictures, like I've talked about Carl Wolf, who was U.S. Air Force, and he was like a technician. He basically the level is a copy repairman, and he's called into some imaging equipment at NASA or Air Force, wherever. And he walks in there, and he's like an airman. And he sees another young guy, and he's like, "Oh, Carl, you got to see this." And Carl looks, he's like, "What am I looking at?" He's like, "This is the backside of the moon. There's like cities there and stuff. There's mushroom-shaped things and towers and highways and all this stuff." Carl's like, "This is amazing. I can't believe it." And Carl said he went home. He told his wife, and he said he was watching the news, waiting for this to show up on the news, but it never did. And you could see the photos allegedly, and I used them in one of my episodes. And it looks like a civilization on the far side of Carl, unfortunately, was met with an untimely death. He got hit by a car when he was riding his bike. So we don't know much more from Carl. But he was part of the 2000 so much.
That's crazy.
So much. When I did the Killer Patents episode, I ended it with all the free energy inventors that...
Like the hydrogen car guy?
He said he was poisoned. He said he's having lunch with investors to finally take his car around. This is Stanley Meyer. And he's not feeling well, and he runs outside. He's throwing up in the street, and his brother was his partner, and his brother said, "What's going on?" He's like, "I was poisoned," and then he dies, and that was the end of it. No more water car. Then we just have this kid who did plastiline. He took plastic and created fuel out of it, and then he disappeared for a little while. I think he's back. So it could be a conspiracy, but I'm going to look into him. Inventors. So my favorite one is Sparky Sweet, who's worth looking into, because he has video of all this stuff in his workshop, and you see he's got voltmeters and stuff, and all this energy is created, and he takes his camera around. He's like, "Look, nothing is plugged in. Nothing is plugged in," and it caught the attention of someone in military somewhere, who said, I want to be your partner and we'll take this wide. And he worked with this guy for a while. And then at some point, black van shows up, a couple of guys in suits have a conversation with he and his wife. They go away, and then he has a heart attack. At the end of it, all his research was taken, everything was seized, and that's how it worked.
That's what happened with Nikola Tesla too, right? They seized all his stuff. 80 boxes of research.
So when he died, it wasn't the FBI at the time, although the FBI there, it was the Office of Alien Property or something, whatever agency's in charge of foreigners. He died, and within hours, they were in his room. This is at the New York Hotel, and they seized 80 boxes research, all kind of research plans, and because it's national security, and they held on to it for months and months. And they finally returned his property to his nephew, but 20 boxes were missing. So in the boxes, allegedly, and this falls under Project Nick, is Tesla's research into direct energy to DWs, which was very hot with military at the time, with DARPA and all of that. We still don't know what's happened to those boxes, but we do know we're researching things based on Tesla's research. And the formula, the sort of the architecture for the HARP project, Alaska, a lot of that comes from Tesla's research. And it took me quite a while to connect the dots, but you will find Tesla's missing suddenly shows up in patents from this guy somewhere in Alaska. I forget his name. And out of the blue, he lands a contract with the DOD for a lot of money. And they build a facility in Fairbanks, Alaska. And it's just an array of antennas in a small building. It cost a fortune. Like, where'd the money go? Cost a fortune. And what it does is it ionizes and creates plasma in the atmosphere. And they say we use this to test the atmosphere. But it could also be used for all kinds of processes. Tesla wanted to do is create free energy by exciting the ionosphere. That was what he was doing with Wardenclyffe Tower. But to do that, and he couldn't get any funding. JP Morgan was his patron, and he told JP Morgan, do you see it in his letter? I need a sum of money. He needed like $200,000 to get this project going. And JP Morgan said, well, you're building wireless communication. What do you need all this money for? And Tesla's like, no. Wireless communication, I got that. We're going to do wireless energy. Do wireless free energy for everyone on the planet can just tap into this, get free electricity. And JP Morgan says, well, how do you meter on that? JP Morgan owned copper mines that made copper wire. He owned rubber farms all over the world that made insulation for the wire. He owned lumber mills and forests that created poles for wire. He owned coal factories. He owned machine shops that created generators for electricity. And he owned railroads that brought this stuff around the country. Free energy shuts that whole business down with any of that. Carnegie don't need any of that. The Mellon family need you guys anymore. It's just free. Imagine what the world would be like. Energy was just free.
That's the golden age.
Yeah, we're not going to live to see it.
Nope. Wow.
I think I went off on a few tangents, but...
Have you ever looked into the flat earth stuff?
I have. I'm not a flat earther.
Me neither.
I don't even do an episode on it because to me it's so ridiculous. But people do request it. And me calling it ridiculous, I can handle the hate from the followers. That's fine. But I do like the theory. On YouTube, you're not going to find much flat earth stuff. But if you go land on Rumble and search flat earth.
Why do you suppress it?
There's some stuff we'd have to talk about off air, but there are subjects that YouTube will just not allow you to discuss. So I can't say specifically because I made a promise to someone to tell. But if you look at a couple of my demonetized videos, you'll see that they're kind of softball. Like, why is this demonetized? Go look at those. Those are no talks that I didn't know until it was too loud. I was like, why is this demonetized? I can't talk about that. I'm like, every true in here. I debunk most of it. I can't even talk about it at all, true or not. Flat Earth, they don't like that one. But if you go on Rumble and spend like 2-4 hours just watching those videos, you walk away like, oh, it could.
There is some compelling argument.
Antarctica wall. He's got a point.
Why haven't we been to the fucking moon?
Well, we have been.
Haven't we been back to the moon? How long?
It'll be 54 years.
4 years. We just went. We're like, we don't need to explore that anymore.
I think that there was.
We've been there. Box checked.
It was expensive. It was expensive to go. And then it was also we'd done it. And there was more focus on lower Earth orbit, right? We wanted to evolve that technology. Mm-hmm. And so again, the Chinese want to go to the moon. So at the south of the moon, there's ice. And ice means oxygen, ice means water, ice means life, right? So you have, that's a key component. And the Chinese are trying to get there. We want to beat them back to the moon. And it's not going to go with their 1970s landers. It's going to be a lot bigger, bolder missions. But what's important is what we learn in the mission to the moon and how we do it on the moon and how we have sustained human life on the moon, how we have a base on the moon. What we learn there is going to help us get to Mars and beyond. That is the way station, the stepping stone to go out and explore other places in the universe. And so I think the organization wasn't focused. The last administration they were trying to pivot NASA into from human space exploration, which is, by the way, NASA is the only one that does human space exploration. Agency does that, right? They were trying to turn it into a climate change DEI organization. I brought you a book.
Oh boy.
So this is what they spent $2 million on a number of different comic books. This is one that is the first woman in space, but no problem with the first space. But it's a book that is full of DEI and gender crap, as opposed to saying, I don't care what your color is, I don't know what your gender is. I want the best astronauts on missions. That's what I want. And millions of dollars was spent on books like this at NASA.
Millions of dollars.
As opposed to thinking of millions of dollars to invest in science and technology that's going to get us to the moon before the Chinese. And so what we've had is, again, so you got to think about this. So 10 years ago, one would have envisioned that we would have a space economy like we have right now. And SpaceX and Elon Musk revolutionized how we think about commercial space. I don't know how much it used to cost to get a satellite into space, but it was really expensive. What SpaceX has done is brought the cost down. I mean, for a small satellite, I think it's going to cost you $300,000. For a little bigger one, it's going to cost you $1 million. But companies can get satellites into space way cheaper than ever before. But no one would have thought about the space economy but for this evolution in rocket technology, Elon's ability to reuse rockets, all fantastic, right? And so right now it's a $600 billion business. We'll be at $1 trillion in order. It's the fastest growing part of the U.S. economy, actually, is this part of it. And it's really important for our national security side of the aisle. We're civil, but there's a national security component to it as well. But on the flip side, I told you, we're going back to the moon in early February. First time in 54 years.
Early February's in
like in
months?
Yep.
4 months?
4 months. Do you know what the mission's called? No. Exactly. Do you know what Apollo is? What Apollo is? The Apollo missions.
What do you mean?
So NASA's mission. It brought us, that was our mission to the moon, right? Everyone around the world knew what it was. Everyone knew NASA, what we were about at NASA in the Apollo missions to the moon. Everyone knew the space shuttles, the shuttle missions. Everyone knew what we did. And we are about to send, first time in 54 years, Artemis 2 back to the moon. And I bet you 97% of Americans have no idea that we're doing it and no idea what it is. It's a huge problem. So NASA lives off the fumes, what they did in the past. They're not living off what we're doing in the future. What's the vision for the future of NASA? What are the future missions? We going?
So we're going back to the moon in 4
We're not going to land. We're going out and around the moon and back.
Why are we doing that?
What's that?
What are we going to learn from that?
So we're testing the technology, right? You want things in steps, right? You don't want to do everything in one step. You want to go through a stepping stone process, and we're going back, right? Out and around, come back.
We did take a step 54 years ago.
But there's a reason to there is a reason to go back.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the next step be a little bit bigger than the
This time, right? That is the key component. And so we gave a directive for surface vision technology, right? So we can have power on the surface of the moon. We think we can get that done by 2030, and you can have sustained human life. Missions bringing equipment to the moon's surface. It's going to be cool. There's helium-3 on the moon, an amazing power source. If you bring back to Earth,
So that's 100% true. There's
helium-3.
We've had conflicting reports on that. We've heard that China is mining helium-3 off the moon actually right now.
I don't know about that, but I think we want access to this remarkable power source, right? So again, that's just one component of what you might get from the moon. You know this better than I do. I don't know who said this, but he who controls the seas controls the world. But there was a time that was. I think he who controls space controls the world, and I think part of that is moon component. and making sure that we're the ones that are there. And we do things differently, right? We have these international partners that are working with us that believe in transparency and openness about what we're doing and how we're doing it. They have a very different model. There's no military sides of their space. And again, I don't know if in your military experience, should we cede the moon to the Chinese? And are there any national security risks to that? Do I want to find out? I don't really want to find that out. But the point is, we're late. We're delayed in our mission to the moon. And so what I've said is we're gonna open this up and let different companies compete to see who can get us there first, right? I want to get there before the Chinese, number one, and I want to get there before President Trump is. That's what President Trump wants as well. He's given that directive. And so when you have companies compete, America wins. I got two really rich guys that have space companies that want to compete against each other. And when they do, there's going to be great evolution in technology, great race, not just against China, but against American companies to see who's going to get the honor of doing it first, of putting American astronauts back on the moon. At this time, it's going to be almost 60 years since the last time we were there.
Man. So in February, we're going around the moon.
Yep.
Have we ever done that before?
Yeah, we did that. Well, we did that back in the 70s, right? We were there. But we're going to go, we're going with way bigger equipment, way more sophisticated equipment this time, which means it's more complicated. The complication of what we're trying to do today is different than what we did in the 70s, just because of the evolution of the technology. And so and by the way, the technology that SpaceX is working on with their vision on how we get to the lunar with their landers is what we're going to actually need to do to Mars. What we're doing with fission technology on the lunar surface and the work we're doing on nuclear propulsion is also how you're going to Mars and back again. So a lot is happening, but you had this agency that was adrift, wasn't really focused. And I've tried, in the short tenure I'm going to have there, is to give it focus, give it a direction, and inspire it. And part of my job too is I gotta sell the missions. If America, and then you're like, we're going back to the moon in February, like what? Holy shit! It's like Dumb and Dumber. We landed the moon.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Amazing. And I think that's the mission. I think there's opportunities too to partner with one of the greatest brand in the world is NASA. Global national brand. NASA is premium. I think we can partner. We can't take partnership money at NASA, but we could partner with companies, and in the part we get them to advertise but also our mission, because Americans need to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and when Americans know it and they care about it, then the Congress cares about it and the Congress funds it. And again, I think that's an important part of what the role is. What I've done, and the next minute we'll have to do as well, is you got to sell the mission, you got to sell the vision, you got to spin off the past. Let's inspire people for the future. I want the 8-year-old kid, in somewhere in Missouri to not be like, we did this in 1970, that was great. No, like I want them to go, this is what we're doing right now. Like in my time, the cool shit that is doing, I want to do that too. Like I want to be part of that, to this organization, this mission. I want to be in it myself. But that takes us talking about it and talking about it passionately and effectively to let America know what it is and what we're doing.
I think our kids are going to space.
We'll say for 35 years, as taxpayers, we spent over $100 to return to the moon.
Why have we not been back to the moon?
Great geopolitical competitor in China that now has that monster vehicle. It's the size of a skyscraper, and it's twice as powerful as the Saturn V rocket that took us to the moon. That saw SpaceX catch with the tower.
Why have we not been back to the moon? Why is man not back to the moon since?
Well, I would tell you right from the get-go, I'm 100% in the camp. We absolutely went to the moon, and what a travesty that we haven't been back. And tell you how we got there. We had a great Cold War rivalry, our ideology versus theirs, and 4.5% of the federal budget, and the will of the nation is what happened. And once we got there and we went a handful of times, collected enough moon rocks, that was an expense that was no longer palatable. I will say for 35 years, as taxpayers, we spent over $100 billion to return to the moon. 35 years later, we haven't been able to do it. That's obviously a problem that we need to fix. There's probably a lot of underlying reasons associated with it, but
What would those reasons?
it's interesting, and some of it goes to like even the competitiveness that we have with kind of the competitive nature of our country, our great geopolitical competitor in China that now has incredible set mover advantage on us. So what I mean by that is like take the Manhattan Project. We know something can be done and we resource it accordingly. We gather up the best and brightest and we set up locations all around the country to contribute and bubble up to this grand endeavor, which was to atomic bomb. Well, we did the same thing during the space program. We opened up Dennis in Mississippi to do engine work, and we set up Marshall Space Flight in Alabama to build the actual rocket in Kennedy Space Center. What a great location to shoot a rocket going eastbound. And you staff up all these great locations, and it all bubbles up to singular purpose, and then you get it done, and then what? The mission kind of loses its way a little bit, and then everybody goes into self-preservation mode, and it's like, well, let's move on to other broad-based science or other things, lots of little things that we're going to entrench ourselves into. And then what happens is when you are ready to re-rally those resources back towards their original goal, it means a lot of people changing what they've been accustomed for some period of time. And it gets really hard to get that machine rolling again. And I say all this in relation to China because they're doing the same thing now, where instead of trying to repurpose facilities and resources that have kind of lost their way to some extent over the years, they're literally doing the same thing of just setting up shop here, setting up a location here, all in optimal locations, all getting the right people and talent, and then resourcing it accordingly and willing to existence. It's basically doing exactly what we did during the Manhattan Project, during the Great Space Race, doing it now, having learned exactly, our approach to it. Puts us at a disadvantage.
Man, it's just, we were talking about, the potential of helium-3 on the moon at best and mining asteroids. And I've talked to a lot of other people that are very interested in this stuff. And it's just so weird that we haven't been back there to explore. And we're talking about going to Mars.
Look, we need to get back to the moon. I wouldn't have mind if 35, because some people can take the position of like, we already did it. We did it long ago. And I have two reasons to go. One of them is, hey, we don't know fine that has economic or scientific or national security value like helium-3 that could change the balance of power here on Earth. They're wrong, but mostly because we said we're going to do it. You can't go back. Every president for 35 years has said, we're going to return to the moon and path to Mars. And as taxpayers, we spent $100 billion trying to do it. The moment you say that, you've just committed the nation and our resources, our national prestige to getting things done. And if you fail to do it, there are ramifications. There's consequences to it. So if we never said that, if 35 years ago we said, you know what, we've done it, and we wish the Chinese and the Russians the best, and we'll celebrate when they get there, but we're setting ours on Mars, then it wouldn't be as much. I would still think we should do it because we don't know what we might find that could change things. But we didn't. We said we're going to do it, and now we spent 35 years and a lot of money doing it. We better get back there.
Where is the $100 billion gone?
Where
did it go to?
It's gone into continuously repurposing old space shuttle hardware. So first it was the Constellation program, which repurposed shuttle rocket boosters, shuttle main engines, and then that program was canceled and then reimagined as which is the current name for NASA's internal rocket program. And that is also repurposed shuttle hardware. So, RS-25 engine that were designed, in the 1970s are still what's going on SLS, and that's what they went on the space shuttle. Actually, this continuously repurposing old hardware, just so you don't ruffle any feathers with any manufacturer, any congressional districts, keep jobs where they're at. It would be the equivalency of taking the P-51 Mustang into Desert Storm because, well, we got to keep the plants open.
Jeez. All right, we're going to dive into this pretty thoroughly later on, but a couple of things to knock out right before we get going on the life story. One of the things, I have a Patreon account. It's a subscription account. A lot of these guys have been with me since the very beginning when I was doing this out of my attic, and here we are 2 studios later. And one of the things I do is I offer them the opportunity to ask each guest a question. So this is from Richard Beamer. close are we to affordable space travel for the general public? And based on your expertise, what is the projected timeline for its availability?
What an awesome question. And we are so close. I mean, and what is that like relative to the 60 some odd years of human space exploration? We're within 5 to 10 years at the absolute most. I mean, think about it. Until now, up until rather recently, every time with humans in space, we've pretty much thrown away some portion of the rocket. So, with the space shuttle, we away the fuel tank, and then it was an incredibly expensive overhaul of the vehicle. In the Saturn V that took astronauts to the moon, threw the whole thing away. Nothing was reusable. And now, within 9, you've got rockets that land on ships. You reuse them within a couple weeks. The Dragon capsule I flew into space, I flew on the same one twice. And prior to me flying on it, NASA's all of that has reduced the cost to put NASA and humans into orbit materially. But now we're to the point where every day anyone can go and do it, and it's as affordable as like maybe a really expensive vacation. That's when you don't throw any of the rocket away, and everything is reusable. Just like you're taking family to Disneyland, you don't throw any portion of the airplane away. So that's that monster vehicle. It's the size of a skyscraper, and it's twice as powerful as the Saturn V rocket that took us to the moon. That saw SpaceX catch with the tower. And that's so the top half is reusable and the bottom half is reusable. And you can fit 100 people on it. I mean, that's your 737 Southwest, now boarding, next flight to orbit type thing. Because it's entirely reusable and it has to propulsively land on Earth, there's a lot of things you need to figure out and get right so it doesn't have a bad day. But, at SpaceX's, pace of operation, their iterative design philosophy, the factories that are making them hardware, 5-10 years away, you're gonna see lots of spacecraft going up and down. It's gonna be a light switch moment for humankind.
Man, I talked to my wife about this, and I'm like, I told you we have toddlers and all. I'm like, you have young kids too, and I like thinking about it. I tell my wife, I'm like, I think our kids are going to space. It won't be long, and there'll be field trips. This is it. And you think we're that 10 years from that, or
100%? I mean, you have our generation's most accomplished entrepreneur with more resources than any human being has ever accumulated in history. And, I want to say a singular focus, but the guy's trying to solve a lot of, the world's greatest challenges, a lot of the world's greatest problems, but one of which is making life multi-planet. The only way you can do that is with fully reusable vehicles, and he's not doing it to send 4 people to Mars. He's doing it to thousands of people, tens of thousands, literally making it the first human outpost in space. And he can will things into existence. I mean, and he's got the greatest talent this country, has produced it's going to happen. And then when it does, for sure, my kids, your kids, seeing astronauts on the moon and Mars will just be the beginning.
You legitimately don't know what China is doing on the other side of the moon?
No, you don't. Yeah.
I'm getting real upset.
Cool their quantum computers with helium-3 before we can. The jig is up. This is part of the power of space. This goes back to why truth and information is the most important. It's back to Sun Tzu and the art of war. Know thy enemy, know thyself. And if you're deceived in your own arrogance, eventually you're going to be a dead man.
What is helium-3?
Helium-3 is an element that doesn't get to Earth very much because our atmosphere and our gravitational field prevent it from landing on the Earth. So an ounce of helium-3 on the Earth is very expensive, and the business doesn't really close. But on the moon or on the asteroids, there's a ton of helium. And so to give you an example of what it means, if we were to mine the moon for helium-3, we could, at the current level of electricity use in America, in the globe, we could power the energy needs of the humans for thousands of years based on the helium-3 that's on the moon right now. And and so the twist there is China is there on the moon, on the far side of the moon. We don't know what they're doing because we don't have infrastructure up there to even see what's going on. But we do know they're mining helium-3.
We legitimately don't know what China is doing on the other side of the moon?
No, we don't. Because the other side of the moon, most people may not know this, but you see one side of the moon in the way that it rotates and orbits around the Earth. It's a very interesting phenomenon, orbital. And so unless we have a constellation of satellites flying around the moon that can see and understand what's going on, we're blind. And that's one reason they're over there. But let me give you a commercial.
Getting upset, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm getting real upset.
So this goes back to a strategy and why I'm in the space business, because space is a place where if America does not change our strategy and how we're investing in space, we will become victims to others that use space as a way of dominating the energy market, but also the information market. So here's an example. About a month ago, Microsoft announced their quantum computing capability, which is just next level and awesome. But they need to get it down to 80 millikelvin, which basically is down to the point where the molecules don't even move. Okay? There's no way to cool it efficiently down that level. Hydrogen would only get you down to maybe 1 Kelvin. You need to go, helium-3 can do it like that. So take the scenario where China now has, as they're mining it on the moon and bringing it back to Earth, to be able to power the entire world for thousands of years. And they are the ones that can actually operationalize quantum, because cool it down to the temperature it needs to actually operate. Now, quantum sensing, quantum communication, when you start looking at and quantum computing, when you start quantum capabilities, sensing, computing, communication, and you can affordably cool it down to the levels where it can be operationalized. Now every code that ever was. I don't care how good your encryption is. They see every secret, every code, everything. From Bitcoin to, things like, the techniques of chain. Forget it. It's all going to change. So there's an example of why not being in space with logistics and infrastructure to be able to move, to see, and to operate can make you vulnerable.
How long has China been on the far side of the moon?
It's been quite a while. You can look back. It's been at least 2 years. The problem here is in my view, it is that we do not have a sense of how dramatically things will change with these technologies that are in space. We build better satellites than anybody on the planet. Okay, we build better fighters. Tanks, ships, submarines. We build really cool stuff, better than anybody else in the world in many cases. There are exceptions, of course. But what beats good technology is a superior strategy. So China, they may be a fast follower, where they look like our F-22 in their fighters. They look a lot like Elon Musk's, rocket ships. They may be a fast follower, making better technology, building a strategy of logistics and infrastructure in space that will change the game for the energy and information market on Earth, and on a strategy that builds better satellites to do the things we've done before. And there are things, but it's not fueled by the kind of money to operationalize it and really compete. This is why, strategy eats technology for lunch.
Man, this is really alarming. I mean, who's what they're doing over there? We know legitimately
we know they're bringing back, because we can see what they're bringing. This is all open source. We can, in open source, you can see some of the things that China's doing, and so we have evidence of some of the things they're doing, but we don't know the extent. And that's part of the problem. And this goes back to why truth and information is the most important element. Because, it's back to Sun Tzu and the art of war. Know thy enemy, know thyself. And you're deceived in your own arrogance and your own dominance of the past, that what you did in the past is sufficient to win in the future. Eventually, you're going to be a dead man. And if you do not know your enemy well enough, not just technical side, but the cultural side. And this is why having been raised in Africa has been very valuable for me, because tribe with no American influence, and then here at the age of 10, and then being immersed in Los Angeles, where my dad was the pastor of a church, gave me a lens of cultural misunderstanding and how we talk past each other. And it's been very valuable, like in the military. The Army talks past the Air, talks past the Navy, talks past Special Forces, talks past the Coast. And to be able to see that and help people connect where they're actually talking to one another and listening to one another is key. But the same happening here with technologies and China. We, as an American society, tend to just believe our press and think that our way of thinking is dominant. And it has worked. But if we don't understand China's cultural mindset, we could end up being a victim to it. It's really important here to state two facts. One, the Chinese people are beautiful. The Russian people are beautiful. People in every culture are just beautiful people. But whenever you are under a governance set that steals away freedom, freedom of choice, which is, and I believe, has been planted in the hearts of every human being, and the Bible tells us, and God is clear, free choice, free will. This is, you know whether you're good or bad. If you have no freedom, I don't know or is bad, because you don't make any choices. You're being forced to make choices that, and so when I see systems like communism, socialism, that have a historical precedence, human nature, of murdering its own people in order to maintain control and taking away personal freedom. This is why what you're doing is at the core of our survival, isn't it? Because free will is predicated on understanding truth. You got to know what's going on in your strategic environment, or again, you're not. You're making a decision that has been shaped in your brain by somebody that's trying to get you to do something in their interest, and you're actually doing something counter to your own self-interest. So in order to understand what China is doing, what Russia is doing, and what is going on in the world, we have to be able to understand truth. And truth has been morphed and mutated. In fact, the information domain is now a battle space. We used to believe the TV. We found out the TV was lying to us and our government was lying to us. Then social media and this new technology came about, and we're like, oh, I need to rush there. How do I triangulate truth here? And now we see that liars and storytellers that are trying to get us to believe something that is not true have infiltrated the social media and even the podcast world. So I say we're like teenagers in this information age, and we still have the tools to triangulate truth quickly enough to be able to not make mistakes and drive ourselves off our own cliff. And so our society is in a very vulnerable place right now, where we're trying to hunt. And this is why you're so valuable, because you are to talk to multiple people to understand where the truth lies. And it's incredibly important.
Thank you. I get my mind off of China being on the other side of the moon for years, and we have not sent anything up. I mean, how does that just slide past the president's desk? Hey, we got China over here, biggest adversary, biggest potential adversary. I want to take a look at this.
Well, President Trump understands this.
Well, that's good.
And in fact, he understood it in his first term. This is why he was willing to put up with the ridicule, sarcasm, humiliation that came with saying, we are going to Space Force. That Space Force, when we look back 300 years from now, the legislation that President Trump championed to get a Space Force written into law will be the wedge in history that protects America. Without, now, even though the last 4 years, the government, the executive branch, has not allowed Space Force to build what it needs to protect us, so they kind of went idle as soon as President Trump came into office. He's going to put that into full afterburner. If China can cool their computers with helium-3 before we can, is up. This is part of the power of space, translated into something tangible and operational, quantum. So that's quantum computing, which would make all secrets, null and void, which might not be a bad thing because then only secrets are the ones revealed and evil can't hide. Where this technology can be good or it can be bad, as long as the human people that dominate these technologies have a good heart and love their God and love other people like God loves them, we have a pathway to the golden age. If only people develop these technologies, like if Hitler wished for the atomic bomb, we would probably all be speaking German right now. It'd be a very different reality.
I've been dying to talk to an astronaut about this because there it is. It's really hard to keep that big of a secret. I have just one more thing before we get going here. So I have a Patreon account. Patreon is it's a subscription online community. They have been with us here since the beginning when I was doing this in my attic when we couldn't get any advertiser, any way to make money. And they were the ones that they're the ones who supported us that got us everything from the cameras to the employees to moving into this to everything. And one of the things I do in that community is offer them the opportunity to ask every guest a question. And they had some good questions.
Oh, it's the most nerve-wracking question, I'm sure.
So this one's from me.
Oh, no. Is that legal?
I'm part of the community, too. So this one's from me.
Is that because no one asked a question?
No. There's the real question. I'll ask you too, but I'm going to ask mine first because I've been dying to talk to an astronaut about this because we do dive into some conspiracies here, as you know. Did we go to the moon? Wanted to talk to an astronaut about this there it is. We have not been back to the moon since 1960. Why haven't we gone back?
Why? Oh, man. I think we just did our focus as a country, NASA. Different priorities once we went to the moon, which I do believe we have.
You do think we did?
I do. I don't know. I mean, I would imagine there would have been a lot more leaks out.
I'm with you. I think about that. It's really hard to keep that big of a secret. I mean, we don't just go anywhere and fuck it. There's nothing here. I don't think we need to come back to the moon. We walked on it for 5 minutes and we're out. There's nothing to see here. Yeah. Really? Give me a break.
It's not easy. There's a sequence of miracles that happen. I mean, think about the computer power of what they had back in the Apollo program. We have iPhones these days. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't an easy task. And then once it was accomplished, in my opinion, the focus shift to low orbit, building a station, the science and research that has been the focus for the last few decades. Amazing things have come out of that. You can do a lot more at zero gravity and with science and research. And we experienced that on our mission with our 40 experiments that we had lined up. And that's, let's build out the station. Let's explore low Earth. And now that we've kind of made this new shift with opening up a new chapter in commercial space exploration, allowing these companies and organizations to kind of go off these new tangents and explore. We're not only going to address low Earth orbit over the next, coming years. It's all about, okay, let's go back to the moon, the lunar surface, and let's go to Mars. Because it's human nature to explore and curiosity. And oh, by the way, we can benefit life on Earth. Bottom line, I think it's just a focus. And now that we kind of shift and let's do more because we can. Reusability and technology is improving. But it's a heavy lift. It's not easy, or we would have, knocked it out in a couple of years. We're still a couple of years away.
Yeah, I don't know what to think. It's just, what is that, 1969 to what is that, 50?
I'm 51 at 73, so that's an extra 4. It's 55.
Yeah, 56 years.
Yeah.
56 years we've not gone back. That's just odd to me. But whatever, so you think we did?
I think we did.
All right. When do you think we'll be back?
Well, yes.
I mean, Elon wants to go to Mars.
Mm-hmm. We're the plan is 2, back to the lunar surface, and 2, and Mars in 4.
Back in 2 years.
I do think that's that's realistic. Like I said, there's things that need to be solved, and NASA's doing amazing work to get us there with the partnerships and collaborations with SpaceX and other organizations. But we got to figure out how it's going to be done and done safely, because it's with our mission it was a no fail. Otherwise, we're going to set back these programs years if something catastrophic, and the public's not willing. The risk we took back in the day, the 50s and 60s, was a lot more significant than we're willing to accept these days. And, we're kind of reverse, and it can be a positive and a negative, to something, because it can be paralysis through analysis. Mm-hmm. At some point, we shut up and go.
It seems like civilian space exploration is like really becoming a lot more advanced than NASA. It seems like it's well beyond what NASA can do. Am I off? I mean, isn't SpaceX going up to rescue the NASA guys that have been stuck in space for like 8 months?
You're starting off with the tricky one. For sure. NASA's, they do this for 11. They've been doing it for decades. And it's and we typically always make sure that we never lose sight of these accomplishments. We're standing shoulders of giants of what they've been able to accomplish. And we, meaning commercial space collectively, would not be where we're at without everything they've been able to accomplish. And moving forward, it is definitely a partnership.
Is it a one-way partnership, or is it a two-way? I mean, the government is great at, sharing. I'm just, is it really?
I think it's two-way. I mean, just look at our program. We did the first commercial spacewalk. To do that, SpaceX wanted to develop a brand new EVA suit, extravehicular activity, do a spacewalk. And that's never been done in over 40 years. The NASA has the EMU suit that they currently use. Space is going to figure it out on their own. So they took their baseline suit, the IVA suit, the one they currently wear to and from the space station, and a very 2.5 year time span, took that suit and developed the what we wore, which is more or less the prototype BA suit. Now, to do that on a very streamlined budget, not a multi-billion program, they monster garage this thing to develop a suit that is extremely viable and will be, the baseline going forward as far as what they're going to develop regarding a suit with humans bouncing on the surface of Mars in capacity, not a handful of suits like NASA has. This is the concept is, these starships are going to launch hundreds of passengers. In Elon's vision, he stated in the past, it's 3 of these a day full of passengers going either to the low Earth orbit, to a station, to the moon, to Mars. It's sci-fi, but that's what we're accomplishing, and that's what SpaceX is accomplishing and other organizations accomplishing. Because when I got involved with this program years ago, I didn't really understand the concept of boosters landing on their own, sticks, catching boosters, ability. I'm like, there's no way. This is far-fetched. But look at us. I mean, Test 8 is launching in Starship. And each time they launch, they're learning new things. It lands successfully in the ocean, Indian Ocean, but it certainly well could. And they're going to catch the booster chopsticks. And this is just a next step to that ultimate goal of multiple launches daily, going to the moon, going to Mars.
Why do you think why do we want to bring hundreds of passengers into space?
The only other object in the solar system that has liquids on its surface is a moon of Saturn. It's called Titan. What I would like to do if I had the opportunity is to go fishing. Because find fish. It means that there is life as we. Common sense is not common in academia. It's one material. We found inside of the fire from this meteor. Colleague at Harvard University time reported. So we found they have we discovered were less than millimeter in size. This is a grain of sand. Because they look like and then so we are now planning the next expedition. Hopefully, it will be the expedition, and hopefully we'll get it so that we found a chemical composition that looked different. The microids came was element in the experiment. These are called volatile in evaporated. Can should teach me it has for example buttons. Two them ask students in my class, what do you think? First, to know whether and fact, and so elements become Yes. Oh, yeah. Word. Saturn. It's called Titan. Titan. You know, it's freezing. But time to a time early.